Hello and good morning, good evening to some people, and good night, good afternoon to some people, different part of the world. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'm really sorry to start a little bit late. I really do apologize that our guest was trying to put her baby to sleep. And that's part of her story. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight on Solomon's Temple. So welcome to Solomon's Temple. My name is Solomon Izangi Shams, as you can see. But most of you, even my kids, call me Uncle Solomon. So you're free to say that, to call me that. I would really appreciate it. On Solomon's Temple, we get to look at issues and we dissect, investigate, and try to look at godly values and godly truths. How do we learn from different stories? How do we bring truth into our lives and into our community as a church, our community as a family, our community as a nation, as a city? You and I can influence a city. You and I can really make a difference in the city. And that's very, very important for us to do. So please make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, Solomon's Temple. Make sure you do that right away, Solomon's Temple. There are a lot of other videos that you can watch, and I'm sure video resources that we have on Solomon's Temple's YouTube channel is going to be really edifying to you. So please check it out and watch some of the videos. Yesterday, we had an amazing interview with the former devil worshipper, Erica Kimani, all the way from Kenya. And next week, I hope to bring her up again, bring her husband, Abraham Bamboo. They're doing some great work up in East Africa. The kind of people that you really want to, listen to or associate yourself with when it comes to, understanding God and really working with God. So that's very important. So check that video out. I see there quite a lot of people watching it. It's less than 24 hours now, but I think it's just about 8,000 people, close to 8,000 people have watched that video already, 8,000 views. Yes. So again, I will want to encourage you, please join our WhatsApp group, not a WhatsApp group, Telegram partners, where we pray together. We get to support each other. You get to support what I do in different ways. And we also get to encourage each other there, because we are called to carry the truth. We are called to be, into a movement called the truth movement, because we've seen the evaporation and the disappearance of truth in our lips, from our lips to our decisions, to our families, our homes, to our pulpits, our churches, and our nation, our parliament. And we've seen a lot of that. So wherever part of the world that you are, that's something that we all can do. So please make sure you connect there. I'll really appreciate it. And thank you guys again for people who are helping with my legal cost. I have a case with Alf Lukau, who was involved directly or indirectly, not sure about that, with the resurrection of somebody who had allegedly passed away, Elliot, and he now resurrected about 2 years ago. So he said I defamed him after that resurrection. I said certain things which for me was not defamation. So we have legal costs to meet, and he wants me to go to prison, basically. That is his desire, to make sure he's asking the court to make sure that I go to prison for contempt of court. So any support from you, either through that banking details or through this PayPal account, solomontalks@yahoo.com, that would go a long way. There are a lot of people that are trying to silence people like me and people like you, who are, people who are on a crusade to say the truth, to speak the truth with no fear and no favor. So obviously you're going to face a lot of opposition. It should be normal. We see our Lord Jesus Christ. I mean, he faced the same thing. Stephen, Paul in the Bible, the apostles. So we shouldn't see it as persecution when we going through this kind of thing. We go through it knowing that God is with us. In all of it, how is he with us? How are you going to know that God is with you if you don't go through situations like this and he come through with the finances, or he come through and making sure you don't go to prison? So even if you go to prison, the things that you're going to do in prison whilst you were there, and the story that is going to come out of your prison experience. So we mustn't shy away from these things. We mustn't just pray that God, make sure he doesn't go to prison, but we must pray for the will of God. And sometimes you and I take our will and put it on God so it becomes his will, but that's not really his will. And later on we get disappointed. We like, why is God didn't come true for me? We get disappointed with God. We say God is not really answering our prayers and all that kind of stuff. But God has really have nothing to do with your will. It is his will, but you substituted his will, with your will. So we must be careful, even as you pray for me, please make sure we stay on that course and continue to go on. So there's quite a lot of people here. Good evening, Solomon from Boxburg. We got somebody from the DRC. So we got quite a lot of people saying waiting. We got Peggy all the way from Zambia. We got Eastern Cape is in the house. They hadn't changed the name of Eastern Cape, right? Okay, yeah, no, they didn't change that name. We got Emma from Namibia, David from Kakiso. Thank you. We got from Brits. Kakiso is from Brits. Thank you so much. We got Limpopo. How do I forget Limpopo? I cannot forget you. We got Anthony actually claiming that he's the first to comment today. Thank you for joining. Thank you, everybody. There's just quite a lot of comments here. We got from Florida in the USA, Terry there. Thank you, Terry. And Mozambique, more USA. We got Bravi from the USA. We got Dr. Nana. Okay, we got from Toronto, Prunell. Yeah. And we got Babsi from the UK. We got Dr. Natasha Opoku from the USA. Yes, I remember her very well. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me. Well, tonight I'm going to be talking to my guest who is about to share her story. And, a lot of us, relationships is part of our lives. If you're a man, you desire to get married one day. Most men. So I'm not going to say every man want to get married, because there are some that don't want to get married. Some don't even want to have a relationship, and some just want to become players, play around with women, have kids here and there. And I mean, what sort of life is that? That's like too painful to live that kind of life, so not every man want to get married, but at the same time, a lot of us desire to get married. A lot of women desire to get married. Now, we're going to be looking at it from her experience as a woman, how her desire for relationship led her into making certain decisions that she can reflect now and actually say, hey, I made certain mistakes. There are certain things that I did wrong. And the whole thing is just for us to be able to share with her. And also, what complicates her situation is also, I think one of the things is a baby came out of that situation, and then the man ran away. Right? Not just the man ran away, but even at the beginning of the relationship, the person himself, the man was from a different faith. He wasn't from the same faith as her. So I just want to welcome my guest this evening, Giselle. Thank you so much, Giselle, for joining me.
Hi, Solomon. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I did quite a bit of long introduction, so I hope you. The first time you spoke to, the first time you spoke to me was that in January, is it?
Yeah, when I saw you had Lesego on, and I saw her story, and it was, I mean, a bit similar to mine, except that she's South African, and the person who left her was that Congolese guy. And with me, it was the other way around, so I could actually relate to that pain. Even though, okay, with her it's a bit more complicated because they were married. But I mean, I could relate to that, being left, and just being with someone who you don't know. You wake up and you realize it was a different person. So yeah, that's when I reached out to you.
And a lot of people actually related to Leseho's story. For some reason, a lot of people in the US and also in the Caribbean, like the Jamaicans, they could relate to her story. Actually, right now, for some reason, her story on YouTube. For those of you guys who haven't watched the story, go there and check out the story of how, her husband left her and married her, a gospel artist in Congo. For some reason, that her video, it was, I think we did it about a month ago, has become actually my number one video right now on YouTube. There's been over 200,000 views, and I never imagined. Thanks to Pronell. Pronell actually in Canada introduced me to the story. Because I get a lot of people inboxing me and telling me their stories like every day, so there's just sometimes you're like, okay, Lord, which story should I take on and how should I do it and what should I do? And a lot of people could relate to her story. And I'm glad you related to her story and then came forward to share your story. So originally you are Congolese, right? Tell me about your background, as Congolese, and how you came into South Africa.
Well, I've been here for quite a while. We came in South Africa in '94. So that's about 27 years ago. So I came with my two parents, my four brothers, and my sister. So 6 children in total. And we came to South Africa. Initially, we stayed with my grandfather because he had been staying here for a while. But I'm
So
not sure what.
this is your family, right?
Yes,
This is
yes,
your
that's it.
siblings.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm not sure what happened between him and my dad, but they've always had a very rocky and a complicated relationship. So after a year of us being here in South Africa, I remember him and my dad just had this very big argument. Obviously, I was a kid, so I don't know what it was about. But next thing you know, my grandfather just tells my dad, like, take your bags, take your wife, your children, and get out of my house.
So your
So
grandfather
obviously,
has been in South Africa for some years before
yeah,
your dad
before he arrived. Mm,
now came on. Were you guys came in for economical reasons, or was it political reasons that you guys moved to South Africa?
I'd say it was political reasons because my grandfather was a politician. So I don't know if you know the history of the DRC, but at the time the president was Mobutu, and there was some political unrest. So my grandfather fled, and then obviously now we're still back in the DRC. Things are becoming hefty, so we also had to leave. And when we had asked him to come, he said he was okay, like for us to stay, for a while until my dad could find a job and get settled. But like I said, I don't know what happened between them two. Um, and next thing we know, we're just stranded. I mean, we didn't know anyone apart from my grandfather here. And we ended up in Hillbrow in Joburg CBD and slept on the streets, basically homeless.
Now, for
Asking
some of you
for,
guys, let me break down. There's a lot of international people here, so let me
all
break
right.
down Hillbrow for them. You know, if you were
Yeah,
like, if you were like in the UK, maybe you're talking about Brixton, that kind of places. Or if you are in like New York, you're talking about Harlem or the
Bronx.
Bronx,
Yeah,
that kind of thing. So picture that, where there's a lot of danger, there is lawlessness, there is drugs and alcohol and prostitution, everything just so Hillbrow in Johannesburg has that kind of feel. And a lot of the people in Hillbrow, quite a lot of people that are refugees from other countries or people, fleeing their countries to come. Hillbrow is always the place. There's quite a lot of lawlessness there. Even the police sometimes are skeptical into going into certain places. So you guys were thrown into the street. Here are your parents. These are your parents, your mom and your dad. Here are your parents with 5 kids, thrown into the street. Don't know. So you lived in the street for a little bit, isn't it?
yeah. I remember. I can't tell you how long it was, but it was quite a while because I mean, I remember in winter we were sleeping in the parks and just begging for blankets and stuff, and that lasted for quite a while. So it must have been maybe 5 or 6 months that we were just living on the streets, begging for money, for food. And around this time, my mom fell pregnant. I think she was already pregnant before we got kicked out. So obviously, when you're pregnant, you need to eat, so the baby can be healthy and stuff. So because she wasn't eating, the baby was born unhealthy. He was premature, and he also had Down syndrome and a weak heart. So unfortunately, he passed away when he was only 2 months old. And even, I mean, even to bury him was something that was truly painful. But I only found out about that later on as an adult, because I was asking my mom, how did we manage to bury the baby now? We didn't have money. So how did we do it? And she told me the story of how they went to the funeral home. Her and my dad obviously didn't have money, so they started basically begging the people at the parlor to just maybe come up with a way for them to bury my baby brother in dignity. And there was a lady there that overheard the conversation, but then she didn't approach them right away. And when they left, she spoke to the funeral home and told them, you know what, let me buy the coffin, get a plot at the cemetery so that this woman can at least bury her baby. And because she didn't know us, she didn't know, my parents, she just, on the tomb, she just decided to write baby boy. So that's what's written on his tomb until today. It's just baby boy. It's not even his name or his
No
surname.
name, no nothing. Very
No date of
undignified.
birth. Yeah, just baby boy, because I don't know why she just didn't want to be known. She wanted to do it anonymously. So yeah, that must have been painful for my mom. I mean, now as an adult, I can only imagine you in a new country, you don't speak the language, you don't know anybody, you're homeless.
Oh, when you guys came here, what languages were you guys speak? English obviously was not something that maybe you spoke a little bit of it or none of it.
No, we didn't speak English. We spoke French. The only person who could speak English already was my dad, because he had already had some exposure working overseas many years ago. But
Hmm.
for the rest of us, we only spoke French and we didn't know anyone. So, and the thing is, my dad back in DRC, he was a civil engineer, but in South Africa, you can't just if you're a foreigner, like jobs like doctors and civil engineering, you can't just get a job here. I think you have to go through some type of
Yes, you
rewriting
have to do certain
exam or
exams and stuff, yeah,
yes,
to
something like
convert
that.
your
So
qualification, yeah.
exactly, yeah. So that was hindering him also. That's why we were left just stranded there. That happened for, I'd like to say, about 3 or 4 years. We were like that, just living off, donations from Catholic churches. They were the ones who actually helped us a lot. So in the beginning, they just used to give us food. And this one nun, she felt really sorry for us as a family, because she could see that we were, there's little kids and we're sleeping in the parks. It's the middle of winter. So she organized for us to stay in this abandoned house. It was still in Hillbrow. It was an abandoned house with, I think it was like 4 or 5 rooms. So she placed like the refugees, because it wasn't just us. She placed each family in a room, and then that's how we would live. And then to eat, we would get donations from Pick and Pay, Checkers, Shoprite, whatever food they had that had expired, they would come and deliver it to us, and that's how we would eat. Every Monday we would get food. That's if there was any food to be delivered. We survived like that from 94 up until around 97. So that's about what, 3 years. And then in 97, now I don't know what happened with that house where we were living, but we couldn't live there anymore. They wanted to renovate that house and do something else with it. So now they sent us all the way to this village in Pretoria. It's called Garankuwa. And it's basically in the middle of nowhere. I remember we got off the bus and it was just like a field everywhere, just grass and trees. And in the Catholic church, they just came and gave us, tents, the camping tents that you camp in,
Yes,
and then
yes.
sleeping bags as well. So they told us, look, for now, there's nothing we can do. You're just going to have to live in these tents and use the sleeping bags to sleep in, and they'll continue to donate the food. So that's how we lived. But for me, like that memory as a child, I used to look at it as camping, because I was a
Mm.
kid. My siblings, the older ones, they're the ones that were teenagers, and I'm sure it must have been more difficult for them, because they understood the gravity of the situation. But for me and my sister, we were still probably like 7, 8, 9, 10, around there. So we were just like, oh, we looked at it as camping. In order to eat, we used to, how you fetch you cut branches from the trees and you make fire with matches, you warm the water. That's how we survived. That's how we ate. That's how we ate food. And we continued to live off of donations from the church.
Mm.
And the same nun, she would always look at my dad and be like, but this person seems well spoken, educated and stuff. So she asked him, like, what happened? Like, how did you find yourself in this situation? What's your story? Where do you come from? So my dad explains to her the whole thing about how, his father and him, they had a falling out and everything. And, she asked him, okay, so what did you do for a living back in your country? What were you doing? My father told her, no, I was a civil engineer. And, when she found out this, she was shocked because, you know, and that's, I guess, the perception that people have, when you look at a homeless person, you just think, okay, this person must be, I don't know, a runaway from home, or
Yeah.
they must be on drugs or something. But you never think that, this is a qualified person, and, there was somebody once upon a time and now they find themselves in this situation. So I think that really touched her, because then she was the owner of a non-profit organization that would help refugees in South Africa, people seeking asylum in South Africa, orphans, people that run away from war. So she started like assigning certain tasks to my dad, maybe if it was accounting or finance, just small jobs here and there. And eventually that's how he managed to save up some money and moved out of that place, I think after a year or a year and a half, and moved into a two-bedroom apartment in Pretoria West. And I think that's where things became a little bit normal. But financially, we were still, it was still difficult because there's 6 children, sometimes we eat once a day, sometimes we don't eat. Yeah, that's my childhood, basically. I had to
Mm.
summarize. Yeah, that's my first couple of years in South Africa
Mm.
was that, not happy memories.
Yeah, you could. There's quite a lot of challenges there that one could see, one could connect to, with,
Yeah.
just the fact that you have this big family and then you have to live on the streets and then you have to struggle. First, because you're in a different place, a new place. You have to now find your way around it. I mean, you were thrown into the streets by family, by your grandfather. And there's a lot of families that experience that. Sometimes, family members will say, I don't have nothing to do with you. I don't want to have anything to do with you. What do you do from there? How do you keep going? How do you keep trusting God?
Yeah.
Is that the end of it? And not to talk of just, I mean, if you're just one person, then you can look for how to survive as
As an
just one
orphan.
person. But when you
Yeah.
have a full family like that, your dad, he has to just keep hustling. And your mom also, they just have to keep hustling because now there's
Mm.
kids and you have to go to school. And then you went through school, and how was like your teenage years? How did that affect you? Also, just like in your teenage years, how did that movement and the and the stress and the challenges that you guys face as a family, affected you?
Me personally, I struggled with depression from the time I was very small. I think to pinpoint when the depression started, it was when this poverty thing, came about. Because you have to understand that as a child, a child um, don't think like an adult. You want what kids your age have, and you don't understand in your mind, like, why don't we have what they have? So I mean, things like not having, food for lunch, not wearing clothes that belong to you because it was donated. So it's like small things like that start affecting your self-esteem, And I remember from a very young age already feeling like, I want to die, like I don't want to be here. why did God send me here? Because we're suffering, I don't have toys like other kids. I don't have, uniform every year. So I struggled with depression basically my whole life. That's
Mm,
how it affected me. And even my personality, because the thing about being poor is that you automatically start feeling worthless. You don't feel like you're someone, you feel invisible. So you become quiet, you become withdrawn. Even your how can I say, your posture, you like this all the time when you're around people. Small things like that affect you. And you start
mm,
feeling like you're nobody, like people can walk all over you, because now who am I don't have anything. And yeah, my whole, from the time I was a kid, all throughout my teenage years, throughout my adult years, it still affected me even until today. I mean, I still battle um with depression. That's an everyday battle. But yeah, that's where it started. It was very rough, very, very
mm.
rough.
On your relationship with other people, with as a teenager, obviously with your friends or with boys and that kind of thing.
To be honest, I never had friends. My friends was my sister. Because even the way we finished high school, because we didn't have money, right? So my mother, what she did is she approached the school and she told them, look, we don't have money, but my kids need to finish high school. So they agreed to give us an exemption, which is basically like the government will pay for your tuition as long as you don't fail. And then like for uniform and stuff, they would take things from the lost and found. So it's other kids' uniforms, because now we couldn't afford our own uniforms.
Mm,
So the school that we went to, there's, like I said, your peers, people have things like a cell phone, and they have lunch, during break times. I mean, I remember personally, I used to make up a story like, during break, where you all sitting and everybody eats lunch. Now, because I didn't have lunch, I was embarrassed. So I always had a story. I would always say, no, I have homework to do. So during lunchtime, when everybody's eating, I will go to the class and sit and pretend that I'm doing my homework, because
mm,
I'm too embarrassed to say, I don't have food to eat. I don't have food for lunch.
mm,
So yeah, it's been like that my entire life, just being withdrawn, not trusting people, not feeling good enough. When you're around people, you don't have a voice, you just quiet, you sort of disappear because you don't feel like you're seen.
mm. How was the relationship between your parents, like, in spite of all the challenges?
Um, Look, they had their ups and downs. My mother was a very, very, very strong person, very strong person. She prayed a lot. She was a very strong woman of God. And I think that's what even helped my father, because there were times when, even during these times when we were homeless, that I could see my father like, because he's a quiet person already, but I could see him like being withdrawn. And she was the foundation. She was the fortress. She would tell him like, no, stand up. Don't give up. She was the one that motivated the entire family. Um, in terms of the relationship, what I did witness was, yeah, there were times when it obviously took a strain on them, but they always managed to work things out really between them. I mean, they were together for, before my mom passed away, about 40 years, 40 plus years. So yeah, that's a a very, very long time. All thanks to my mom,
Mm.
definitely.
So your mom has passed away now.
Yes, she has.
Okay.
She
So
passed
now
away
let's,
in
yeah, she passed away in.
uh, no, I was gonna say she passed away in 2017.
Okay, and your dad?
My dad is still alive. He's around. He's staying also here in Joburg.
Okay,
Um, yeah, he's, he's fine. He hasn't been married or anything. He's just very
okay.
reclusive. Since my mom passed away, he's been very reclusive. But every now and again, we still go and visit him to make sure he's fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And your siblings, at least they got some sort of something to do, not struggling uh,
Um,
like you guys
yeah.
had when you early.
Yeah, I would say now, I mean, we're look, life isn't perfect, right? It's not perfect for everyone. We all have our struggles once in a while, but in terms of where they are in life, yeah, they're all doing fine. They're all married, all have kids. They're all employed. I did lose my firstborn brother. Um, Shortly after my mom passed away, he also passed away.
Okay.
So yeah, there's only five of us left.
Now let's go into your life. You got to a place where you wanted, uh, you desired to be in a relationship, to get married and all that. How did you approach it? And tell us about your relationship life that led to a baby that you have today. That is this cute baby here.
Mhm.
What's her name?
Her name is Lola.
Lola. Yes,
Yeah,
this cute baby
beautiful
here
baby.
that you have to raise alone. Not just after when the baby came, even before the baby came,
Before.
the
Mhm.
father of the baby decides to, uh, have nothing to do with you people. So now you have to raise the baby alone. So tell us about what led to this actually.
Okay. Um, okay, personally, look, I've always I think from the time I was 19, I always wanted to get married and have kids.
Hmm.
It's just also because I'm Congolese, our women get married relatively young. So already by the time I don't know, 21 or 23, you already start having members of the family saying, oh, okay, now, you're ready to get married. And, even after you finish high school, they'll already tell you, okay, now, you must get a husband and stuff. So with me, I mean, when I would see like my siblings getting married one after another, okay, I'm the firstborn, I'm the baby. So, it would always like, there was always this thing inside me was, like when will it be my time, because that's what I really wanted. My dream was to be a mother. So when I was about to turn 31, and I was telling my sister, I was complaining to her basically, that everybody's married, everybody in the family is married, everybody's got children, and I seem to have bad luck with men. I seem to, when it comes to relationship, it always looks like it's about to lead to marriage. We're about to get there, and then something happens, and
Hmm.
it's continuous. It's a trend that I've noticed with me. So my sister told me, look, this is a spiritual thing. You need to seriously pray, but not just pray. You need to fast. This is like a battle. This is an issue.
Hmm.
So I took her up on it. She gave me these prayer points. I don't know if you know Elisha Goodman. Do you know him by any chance?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Elisha, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's basically like a pastor, and he gives prayer points for like spiritual warfare and everything like that. So she gave me prayer points, from Elisha Goodman, and she told me you need to fast. You need to do the Esther fast, so you don't drink anything, you don't eat for
Hmm.
3 days straight on, and you pray every single day. You pray. So I said, okay, cool. And that's what I did. I prayed, and I fasted as well. So around this time, I was registered on a dating site, but I never used to speak to anyone. So I would always log in and then see if someone's viewed my profile and then log out. There was never anyone that I would have like a proper solid conversation with. And now in hindsight, I actually realized that my sister had told me this, but it completely escaped my mind. She told me after you fast, actually while you're praying, you need to ask God, I don't know what it's called in English, um, l'esprit de discernement, the
That's in French. How do you say it in French?
discernment. Um, so you need to ask God to give you the mind of to give you discernment, right? Because
Yeah.
after you fast, it can be about anything, but once you've asked God for something, the devil can also bring something to make it look like it's God that's answered your prayers. So you
Hmm.
need to ask God to give you spiritual eyes and ask him to see, if he's the one that's answered your prayers.
Oui.
And this is something she told me that completely escaped my mind at the time, you know. So I finished my fast, I finished my prayers, and coincidentally, I logged onto this dating site that because I'd been on there for months, you know, it wasn't a new thing. I log on to the dating site, and there's this guy that you know says hello and so on, and we start chatting casually, just start talking, and it leads to us talking every single day, you know, long conversations over the phone for hours and hours and hours, and we really really connected. The big thing for me at the time was I was mourning my mother still, so my depression was extremely bad, and it became like a safe harbor for me, you know, because now there's somebody to speak to, somebody that cares, somebody that, you
Mm.
know, if I was feeling down, I could say I'm feeling down today, and you know they cheer you up. And look, it's a natural thing, you know, to want to settle down and to have your other half, which is something that was missing for me. So when I found this in this person, you know, I started thinking that, okay, maybe God has answered my prayers. You know, maybe this is the answer. But again, looking back, I mean, the first thing already before anything, if a person is not, if you're Christian and you know that that's what you want for your life, because that's what I had asked God, give me a man of God. So if you're me being Christian and he was Muslim, that already should have been number one, a sign that this is not from God, you know. But this
Mm.
is something that I can only
So,
say
so he was
reflecting back.
Muslim. He was Muslim and
Mhm.
you Christian.
Yes.
Okay.
But at the time now, I'm thinking to myself, okay, maybe I need to be open-minded. You know, maybe what if I don't know somewhere along the line, what if he becomes Christian? You know, you start um it's sort of like giving yourself excuses because now the person looked perfect from the outside, you know.
Mm.
um
Mm.
Someone that you can talk to, someone that seems reliable, like all the signs were ticked,
But for
you
you,
know,
for you
from
being a Christian, you knew it was getting, you're getting unequally yoked. But then you tried to
yes,
get excuses and say
yes,
because you wanted a relationship and
exactly, I
because
wanted
you've
to get
spoken to that
married.
person, you've warmed up to that person, you just felt this person is great, is nice.
Yes,
So you sort of like navigated your way through it into the
yes,
relationship with those
yes.
kind of mindset.
I gave myself excuses as to why it would be right. You know, so there's a
Mm.
part that's saying, but he's Muslim, and then the other part is like, yeah, but maybe one day, if he sees how I am, maybe what if he can become Christian? Maybe it's God's way of calling him to Christianity. You know,
Don't
things to
don't
sort
don't
of,
don't feel you're alone. There are a lot of people watching now that have been through the same thing
yeah,
where we give excuses, even if it's not in just a relationship, where we give excuses. We know it's not the right thing for us. We know this is not God's choice. We know this is not God's blessing. But because we want it, we desire it, either our flesh basically just take over, and I think that's one of the lessons that we could drag from that, because a lot of people go into a relationship, you could see that this guy has the potential to be an abuser. He is
hmm
an abuser.
hmm
You know that you don't need to even get married to this person for him to abuse you physically and verbally. All you need to do is just to get into a relationship with him. After 2 months, you would see that you would know this person is this person is going to cheat on you. He's going to have other girlfriends,
hmm
but you give yourself excuses and
yes,
excuses, and we see that over and over again in relationships, not just with women, obviously more women than men. You
hmm
know, we've seen that over and over. Age is catching up on me. No, everybody's getting married and I'm not married. Well, maybe this is God's way of
exactly,
doing this. No,
exactly,
I'm lonely. I need to be able to do that. So you want to save the man, you know.
hmm
Sometimes people go into relation. No, I'm gonna pray him out of his cheating habits.
whatever.
I'm going to pray him out of his abuse. I'm going to pray him out of his religion into my religion. So you're trying to be God basically in that kind of
Yep.
situation. But continue.
So yeah, so I noticed that, but like I said, I'm giving myself excuses. And the biggest thing for me was he was at the same, or at least he made it seem like he was at the same level in terms of, getting married. He was telling me, look, I want to get married, I want to settle down, I want to
Hmm.
find my person. So I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay, so that's one thing, that's a strong point, one thing we have in common. So in any case, we started the relationship, and I had told him from the get-go, if we're gonna get married, I want to remain Christian. I don't want to become Muslim. I don't want to convert. And between me and him, that was okay. He said it was fine. It was okay. But his family had a problem with that because obviously in Islam, it's not allowed. You can't a Christian and a Muslim can't be married unless the Christian converts. So he would tell me, no, it's fine. I don't have a problem with it. You can remain Christian. And that's another thing now. In my head, I had pictured and I'm thinking, okay, now when we have kids, how is it going to work? You know? Because now, obviously, me being Christian, I want to tell my child about Jesus. And then now he's Muslim now. He might want to tell the child about Islam. And we had this conversation and he would tell me, oh no, it's fine. We'll tell the child about both our religions and then she'll choose. That's another red flag for me because it's something else that was eating at the back of my head. Like I was uneasy with that, because I mean, I want to teach my child about my faith, something that I strongly believe in. So now you have to compromise already because now you can't say you want to have it your way. It's his child as well. So that again is another big red flag that I just completely overlooked. And I thought, like I said, my goal was I want to be married, I want to settle down, and this person seems to be on the same level as me, and we'll sort everything out when it happens. That was my conclusion or my mindset at that point. So during the relationship, I felt pregnant. Let me just backtrack a little bit. So he had already told me when we got together that he had been on drugs before, but he told me that he went to rehab and it was a thing of the past. So he told me that it was sorted, it was in his past, and that he was completely off of drugs.
Hmm.
So,
And this man, before you continue with the drugs thing, this man
yeah,
he's South African. Is he South African?
yes, yes, he's
Okay.
South African.
And what race is he? Is he a black person? Is he
He's
colored? Is he white?
he's Indian.
He's Indian. Okay, so he's Muslim and he's Indian, from
Yes,
South Africa. Okay.
yes. So, okay, I fall pregnant, and when I'm pregnant now, one day he starts telling me things like, "Oh, my mother's not doing well. My she seems like she's stressed a lot, etc., etc." So I would tell him, "Okay, well, speak to your mother, find out what's going on." And now I realize it was a way for him to try to tell me what was going on in the situation. So one day he tells me that there's a teenage girl that is saying that she's pregnant with his child, and the girl's family is blackmailing his mother, and his mother kept it from him. So obviously now that story didn't make sense. I didn't. I mean, if you are a mother and someone comes to you and tells you your son made me pregnant, you're gonna ask your son, do you know this person? She's saying that she made her pregnant. You're not just gonna pay money because they want to extort money from you. So
Hmm.
that already was a big, major red flag. And I kept on pressing and pressing and pressing because I knew that there was more to the story. So eventually he tells me that shortly before he met me, he had been with this teenage girl, this 18-year-old girl, and she fell pregnant. But because she was a teenager, she was white Afrikaans, and her family was very racist. So when her mother found out, she told him, stay away from my child, um, etc., etc., and I'm going to get rid of this baby. I'm going to make my daughter terminate the pregnancy. So it turned out that they didn't terminate the pregnancy, and the girl was still pregnant. This is the story. This is the version that he gave me. But there's many versions, so I can't tell you if that's true or not. I'm only going from what I was told. So now already at this point, I'm pregnant, knowing that there's someone that's also pregnant by him. Our pregnancies are very short apart, couple of months apart. So now this is when, he's I would say his true colors start coming out, because now I'm realizing that this person is not who they said they were, because there's just a lot of lies. I'm only telling you a couple of things, but there was a lot of stuff. The person was just a completely different person. And to make matters worse, because I had told him that if I found out that he's on drugs again, we're going to have a problem, because I can't raise a child like that. And it turns out his mother one day phoned me, and she told me that because he was staying with his parents, so she told me that she walked into him doing drugs, and she sent me the picture of what she found him using. So, and then that's when she starts telling me more about him, that he's been to rehab 3 times, actually. He's struggled with drugs most of his life. And just painting a picture of now who the real person is, So this is when now it's all dawning down on me that this is who I'm really with. So at the time we were already engaged. I forgot to mention that. When I found out, as soon as I found out I was pregnant, he proposed to me. He bought me an engagement ring, and we started, talking about marriage, discussing, when we're going to do it, when he's going to come, see my father, etc., etc.
And when you accepted that ring, you were still convinced? Were you skeptical, or you were still convinced that, I really want to marry this guy?
To be really honest with you, now I can actually say it. I can actually verbalize it. I had like that little voice at the back of your head that's telling you that, this person is sketchy. But I ignored it, because like my dream was I want to get married, and I also didn't want to be a single mom. You don't wake up choosing to be a single mother, So I was thinking to myself, okay, there's already a child in the picture. Ideally, I want to get married before the child is born, so that we can raise her, while we're married. Basically doing the right thing, doing the right thing when you're in that type of situation. But now, obviously, because the situation is past, I can tell you that there was that voice inside that was like, yeah, but something was just sketchy. I can't tell you, apart from him, apart from the religion, I can't tell you exactly what it was. I guess it's a sixth sense. But there was always that thing that's like, are you sure that you want to marry this person? Obviously, now I know why, what that voice was. So, yeah, the mother tells me about him being on drugs. I confront him about it. And, that's when I now find that, okay, this person, he's always been on drugs. It seems like because they kept sending him to rehab, coming out, sending him to rehab. Now I'm seeing who I'm with for real. I'm sorry to say this, but a drug addict. And it's not to paint him in a bad light, but it's someone that's had an addiction problem. Someone
What
that lies about.
what was he into then? What was sort of profession was he? What did he do to make money?
He was a salesperson at a cell phone shop.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what he did for a living. And he was also a couple of years younger than me. So that's also another thing that used to bother me a bit, the maturity part, because he was, I'd say, maybe a bit more immature than I am. But like these are things that you can overlook, because you think to yourself, well, nobody's perfect. So yeah, there was that. So when the drug thing came, that for me, that was a very, very huge issue, because now there was already the issue with the mother of the child. Now you come and add in the drugs. So now I'm thinking, what environment am I going to raise my child in? Because she's got a father who's has this substance abuse problem. But I chose to stick it out with him because in my mind I thought, okay, I'm going to accept him with his flaws, and if he needs help, I'll go through it with him. You know, for me, I thought I can't abandon someone that's saying that they're admitting they've got a problem. If we need to go to rehab again this time, let's go and get you help or whatever. Um, but as my pregnancy progressed, I also started noticing that he wasn't there, for doctor's visits. When I had a fire at my place, and I had a little miscarriage scare. I thought I was going to have a miscarriage because I inhaled smoke from the fire at my home, and that's a I mean it's a big deal, for any man if you know that your partner is pregnant and she phones you and she tells you, there's been a fire. You're going to worry and say, oh, is the baby okay? You come to the hospital, but he never did, and he seemed uninterested. He didn't care. That's when I started picking up that he just didn't. In hindsight, thinking back, maybe I can say maybe he didn't want the baby. Just looking at his attitude towards everything. He wasn't supportive. So doctor's visits, I would go on doctor's visits on my own. And the major thing for me is, when you look, things happen, right? But when you make someone pregnant, especially in the African culture, the first thing you do is you go and then you approach the girl's father, to introduce yourself and say, this is who I am. I know she's pregnant, and you so that the family knows you. And for me, it's he never did that. Like until today, my father has never met him. My father doesn't know what he looks like, and for me, it was yeah, it's still pretty painful. But it was like I feel like I was a throwaway, because I'm someone's child, I'm someone's daughter. I didn't get that respect, that you're supposed to approach my father and, introduce yourself and say, this is who I am and I want to marry your daughter. That never took place. So it was a lonely pregnancy from the start, even though we were together in relationship, but support-wise, I didn't get support. And as the talks about marriage started, becoming increasing, because now we want to make this happen. We're saying, okay, when are we going to go and sign at Home Affairs? Now the family started having a very, very big issue with the religion, because now, according to them, it's wrong for a Christian to be with a Muslim. I don't know if they took it as a sign of disrespect that I refuse to convert. But from my side, it's a difficult situation to put someone in, to tell them choose between God and the person that you love. And for me, I don't care how much I love you, but I can't. I can't. It's something I could not do. I cannot change my religion. I cannot not be Christian. It's something that I just could not do. It was against my core, my mother being the woman she was, it's like insulting her memory, her hard work, and also just me as a person. It's like changing my identity, because that's what it is. Your faith, it's your identity. It's part of who you are. It's like your DNA, So for someone to tell you, if you want to get married, change your God. For me, it was something I couldn't do. Definitely not. So, like I said, maybe they looked at it as a sign of disrespect. I don't know. But in the background, they started telling him, look, marry the girl, the teenager, because she was okay with converting. She didn't have a problem with it. So they told her, marry the girl. And I also think there was a racial issue as well, because I'm black, and they're Indian, so there was that as well. So 2 weeks before I give birth, he phones me and he tells me, look, I don't want to be with you anymore. I'm going to go and be with this girl, and I'm going to marry her. We've already arranged the marriage. It's going to happen next week. So, yeah, that hit me hard. That
Mm.
that hit me pretty hard, and yeah, I'm not fully recovered, but I'm okay. I'm at a better place than I was then. Just being told basically that you didn't want to convert, so I'm going to be with someone that my family wants me to be with. I'm going to be with a Muslim because that's the right thing according to my religion.
But
And
that was not the deal in the beginning where he said you wanted to convert. And did you get to speak to his mother?
I never did. The mother never made it a secret that she didn't want us to get married. She had told me once that, look, I don't want to get you married to my son, but because he loves you, I'll agree. But if you ask me, I don't want it to happen. So I already knew from the get-go, that the whole family was against it. Now, like I said, I don't have closure with him. There's a lot of things that I've just had to sum up in my head, when you're thinking back and you put one and one together. So for me, I think that he was probably cheating on me with the teenage girl. I think the marriage thing was not something that just popped up. It must have been ongoing. I think because I could see sometimes when he was conflicted, he would tell me, Giselle, I loved you, but my family is putting a lot of pressure on me, and it's like they wanted to disown him, because it's a big thing in Islam. Your family can actually disown you. They can tell you, if you're going to choose this person, you're not my son anymore. So there were times when he was conflicted, and I could see that he's going through a difficult situation. But to be told like that, out of the blue, I'm going to go and I'm getting married next week.
Mm.
It's, for me, it must have been planned. It wasn't something that just happened. I'm sure it happened over a course of a couple of months, and um, yeah, that's how it happened. And when he told me this, because I struggle with depression already, it was, my heart took a beating, and I felt like, I don't want to be alive anymore. I felt like it's a situation that when I was under it, I felt like, how am I going to get over this? How am I going to be okay? You know? So I decided, okay, I made up my mind. I thought, I'm going to give birth. And once I give birth, I'm going to end my life. That was my decision, because I couldn't envision, I couldn't see, how am I going to cope? You're just being left with a baby just like that. And it wasn't what made it more painful. Um, sorry, try not to get emotional. What made it more painful was, it's not even saying, I don't want to be with you, but I can take care of the baby. It's, I don't want to be with you, and I don't care about this baby. So, there's a lot of aspects to it, because it's like, I need to answer to this child. I need to answer to her. She's going to grow up and ask questions. It's one thing. It's one thing to look, relationships don't work out. Fine. You can't force someone to be with you. Fine. That's one thing. But at least take care of your child. You don't have to be in speaking terms with me, but the human being here that's in my belly. So that was the biggest thing for me, was I have to go through this, the remainder of the pregnancy. I have to give birth. I have to watch this child grow up, and one day brace myself for her to ask me, where's my father? Now, what do I tell her? Your father doesn't love you. What do I tell her? He's not interested. How is it going to affect her, as an adult? Because I have a father. I grew up with a father. So I don't know what it's like to not have a dad. I don't know. Um, so there was that. So anyways, I made that decision that I'm going to give birth. And after I give birth, that's it. I'm ending my life. So 2 weeks go by and I go into theater and the doctor delivers the baby and they put her in my arms. So I see her for the first time and my my outlook completely changed, because I thought to myself, like, I can't leave her. Already she doesn't have a father. Now the mother commits suicide. What type of person is she going to grow up to be? What type of
Because your
life is she
your
going to
your
have?
your plan was to commit suicide as soon as you give birth to the baby.
Yes.
You get the baby somewhere safe, and then you just kill yourself because you cannot just handle that rejection.
Yeah, I was going to give the baby to my sister. I was actually, yeah, I even planned out and, I was going to tell them, look, just look after her for the day I'm coming back. That's what I was going to say. I
And
was
then
going
you
to take
just go.
drugs
Next thing they
and,
just find your body, dead body somewhere.
yeah. And when I saw her, I initially made that decision. I don't care how depressed I am. I don't care how difficult it is, but I cannot do it. Suicide was not an option. I can't leave my child. Um, and from then on, it's just been um, a lot of prayer, a lot of self forgiveness as well. That's the thing I battle with the most is forgiving myself, because it's like you could have, why didn't you do this or why didn't you do that? But at the end of the day, I couldn't have foreseen how things were going to happen, and I can't say that I wish I never met this person, because if I say that, it means I wish I never had my child. It will mean that I regret having her, and I don't. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. So I look at it as a learning curve, um, as a lesson, a big lesson. Although I did have red flags, I could have listened to that inner voice,
Hmm.
and I chose to ignore it. Um, but that's actually why I wanted to tell my story. It's just to emphasize really that you need to be equally yoked. That's the most important thing. Um, because look, a person they can have the right personality, they personality wise, character wise, looks, age, job, or whatever. They can be everything that you wanted, but the foundation has to be your faith. You both have to be on the same level in that department.
Hmm.
um I mean, if I had been with, it's not to say Christians are perfect. Look, there are men out there who claim to be Christians who do the same thing, right? But I feel like if I had been with a born again person, someone with Christian values, um, with 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 the correct upbringing that I had, I wouldn't have been in this situation, you know. But it's just that pressure that you feel, especially as a woman and as a Congolese woman as well, that I can tell you that, okay, I've passed my early 20s. Normally, in my culture, we get married at 21. Now I'm about to be 31. My clock is ticking, because men can have children when you're 80. You don't have that clock for men, but women, we have a clock. And that biological clock thing can start scaring you, and because you feel the pressure, you end up in a relationship that's wrong. Um, Maybe it wasn't God's timing, because that's the other thing. Sometimes you think that because you ask God for something that he's going to give it to you, but what you need to include in your prayer is, God, please give me this and that, if it's in your will.
Hmm.
It has to be in his will. And sometimes it's not his time. Sometimes, look, maybe I don't know, maybe it's not in his will for you to get married. Not everyone is going to end up getting married. You might be, I don't know, in your 40s, your 50s, never been married. You don't know why, but I think for me, it's better to do that, to live out God's plan, than to try to play God yourself or to try to help God out. Like, okay, I asked God for this. Now let me set up my life in such a way that it will look like he answered my prayers, you know. And these are things that I can reflect on now looking back. Like I said, I'm not 100% okay. I still have my days.
Mm.
Um, but I'm definitely at a better place than where I was a couple of months ago. So she's 7 months old now.
Okay, I was
And
gonna
yeah,
ask
I take it.
how old is the baby? Has
Yeah.
he seen the baby? No. Has his mother, his first side of the family, has any of them seen the baby? Not
None of
photos
them.
of the baby or visited the baby.
No, he's never met the baby since she's been born. I phoned him the day that I gave birth. I phoned him to tell him that I had given birth, and he told me congratulations. He said congratulations. So yeah, congratulations to me. The last time I spoke to him was a couple of months ago, and there was because I had tried to ask for maintenance for because I felt like I didn't have this baby on my own, etc., etc. So now the new accusation or the new statement from him is that he doesn't think the baby is his. He's saying it's not his.
Hmm.
What I gather, like I said, because I don't have closure, what I gather from that is he doesn't want the baby to be his. He doesn't like the fact that there's this situation that there's this other child aside from the one he has with his wife. And our last conversation, I wanted to speak to him about the kid because for me, it's I don't care what's happened between us. That's fine. You settle down. That's okay. But there's this child, that's there that we can't ignore. And what he told me was that I shouldn't phone him and that I should speak to his lawyer if I want to speak to him. So that's where it is. That's why I said I don't have closure because there's that treatment from him. And my father gave me a piece of advice. He told me, look, just leave this person alone because clearly this is how he was brought up. This is how he was raised. And for my own mental health, for my own emotional health, I can't have that. Someone
Hmm.
who's blatantly hurtful. So it's just for me to just battle it out on my own, which is where I am now. So I'm just focusing on Lola. I know the day will come when she asks questions. I just pray to God that He gives me the strength, the wisdom to raise her. Um, yeah, I don't. It scares me. The future scares me, but with God, I can do it. I just look at it as a learning curve. I know she's a blessing. He gave her to me for a reason, and yeah, just taking it one day at a time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. So looking back in summary, what would you say, just highlight some of the stuff that you feel you didn't do right? Obviously, through the story, you mentioned that. And I could see, first you got into a relationship with someone of a different religion. So there's going to be friction. There's going to
Number
be
one,
conflict.
number one.
And then secondly, there was a sexual relationship involved.
Yes,
So for
before
us,
before, yeah,
that's something. No matter how much we love somebody or how much desperate we are to get their seal of approval, to get
mm,
married to them, sex should be out of the question. I'm
yeah, yeah,
somebody, when I was a teenager, I mingled with sex a bit, and then in my early 20s, I had to wake up and I had to tell
mm,
God, God help me, and I had to stay 15 years, before I got married. And then my wife was the first person I had sex with in 15 years. She was the first person I kissed in 10 years. So I need to set those boundaries, if it left for me, no, I would have sex like regular. But
yeah, yeah,
I know the biblical expectations and I know what God expects us. So sometimes, even from a man perspective or woman perspective, we face that, you know. And also, sometimes we need to listen to the inner voice. That's the
definitely.
Holy Spirit speaking to us, you know. No, this person is not who they say they are.
Mm,
No, these red flags that you're talking about, that's the Holy
mm,
Spirit.
mm,
saying, no, not that
Things
way,
not right. Yep.
not that way. This is what's going to happen, and all that kind of stuff. But for you personally, what are some of the extraction, and how have you grown? How have you used that? I know you're still going through a healing process and really trying to
Yeah.
find yourself, but what have you extracted from it that has helped you as a woman, as a mother now?
Um, the first thing is first and foremost before anything else is to live a godly life.
Mm,
By saying living a godly life, I'm not saying I was, living in sin and partying, whatever. But like you pointed out, the sexual thing, and the thing about that is, especially from coming from a woman's point of view, I can't speak for men, but it's how can I put it? It's wanting, it's a fear of losing out on the person that you're with.
mm,
Um, so you want to tell the person that, look, I want to wait till marriage, right? But now there's another part of you that's like, oh, well, he's going to say you're boring. Oh, well, he's going to find someone else. Oh, well, he's going to cheat. You put all these things before your, I'd say, principles, or the values that you set out for yourself.
mm,
And for me, it's like, it's just taught me to just, like I've done, with choosing to be Christian, but it's to put God first throughout everything. Because that's another thing. If this person, if the person that you're with is from God, then they will understand. Then you won't even feel the need, or that embarrassment, or that feeling to say no. Let's wait until marriage. It's going to be a mutual thing. It's going to be the both of you that already have that understanding, that decision, that we're going to wait until marriage.
mm,
And the thing is, for me, it was subtle, not subtle. It was obvious signs. It wasn't even things that I needed to look deeply into. Like I said, the first thing already was the religion. That already was the first thing. If you see that this person is not of the same religion, don't
mm.
pursue that relationship.
And
Even if
sometimes even
they're,
even even within the Christian community, he might not be of a different religion, but he
but if
might
he's
be of
not
a
born
different
again,
theology. He's not born
exactly,
again, or even
exactly.
if he claims he's born again, there is this theology that they have that is just so strange
Mm,
and not biblical, you know, that kind of thing.
or they also, I don't know about other cultures, but like they tend to mix a lot of ancestral worship and
Yeah,
traditional things together with
yeah.
Christianity, which doesn't mix, right? Because we
Mm.
can't consult ancestors. If you're a real Christian, you shouldn't believe in ancestors.
No,
You shouldn't
no
pray
way.
to them. You shouldn't use muti.
Yeah.
But sometimes a person can say they're Christian, but because now, no, I want to explore or celebrate my culture, then they add that ancestral aspect into it as well. So I
Mm,
mean, it's just things like that, and it all, for me, it all stemmed from that desire to be married, that desire to find my person and to settle down. So I mean, what's the point of being married if it's not with the right person
mm,
at the end of the
mm,
day,
mhm,
rather be on your own and wait for God's time. If it's in his will, if that's
mm,
what he's planned for you, wait for it. And when
mm,
it's from God, you will find that things just fall into place. Things will just align themselves. You won't have these, look, it's not going to be rosy. I don't think any relationship is, but you won't have these huge clashes, between everything. Um, Revelations about the person's personality, things like that. It won't happen if it's from God, because it comes from him.
mm,
God doesn't give you chaos. God doesn't
mm,
give you conflict, you know.
mm,
So these are things, especially as a woman, in my 30s, I can tell you that we shouldn't. Yes, look, it's a natural desire to settle down, to find your person, but we shouldn't put ourselves under that pressure that you just end up with anybody because you want to be married so badly. Now you're trying to force it and to make it work. You
mm,
shouldn't do that. That's the
mm,
biggest lesson I've learned for myself, is just to wait on God. And even now, that's why you hear me. I'm not telling you that, oh, when I get married, then Lola's going to have a dad. I'm not even thinking of that. because I'm telling myself that's up to God.
Mhm.
If it's in His will that I just stay on my own and I raise my child, that's okay. I'm at peace with that now, because now
Mm.
I've seen how, because you're chasing, you have that vision, that's your dream, you're chasing it, but you start ignoring things on the left and on the right, and you're going in directions that God hasn't sent you in. So
Mm.
I'm at peace with that. Whatever happens, it's up to God. Now it's
Mm.
whatever your will is. That's my prayer. May your will be done in my life.
That's right. Thy kingdom come and thy will be done. And the will of God is not our will. And
Exactly.
sometimes we take our will and we make it the will of God and we run with it for 5 years. And then we discover actually it's not God's will, it's my will.
Mm,
You know, now we after going through all the pain and all the pain, all the price, now you discover it's not, it's not God's will, it's your will.
but,
So we must, at the onset, we must really be careful to make sure that it is the will of God that we're fitting in, not our will.
mm,
I would say 80%, 70% of the time is our will, not God's will.
same here.
And I understand we're human, we're not God,
Mm,
He's God. And we have to know His will, and then He said, my will, and then you can follow Him. My sheep hear my voice and I know them and they follow me.
mm,
You know, that's what it is. If you don't hear His voice, there's no way you can be His sheep and there's no way you can follow Him.
mm.
That's just the bottom
And
line.
and the thing, Solomon, is I wanted to also stress out is, just because you ask God for something doesn't mean He's going to give it to you. You know how
Yeah.
a lot of Christians like to say, "Ask and you will receive," and
Good
that's why I
measure,
keep saying,
pressed
if
down,
it's in
shaken
His
together.
will. Exactly.
Yes.
Like, let's say you want to travel to, I don't know, you want to relocate to the US or France, whatever, and you're praying to God about it, and you're like, okay, I prayed to God about it now. Let me make it happen. The thing is, it's not going to happen if it's not in His will. So we also have to understand that just because you want it doesn't mean God will give it to you. That's why you
Yeah.
always have to say at the end of your prayer, say, if it's in your will, God, this is what I want. Please give it to me if it's in your will. And you have to be
And-
okay with the fact that it might not be in His will.
yeah. And that is not a lack of faith in any way. Anybody that tells you that you are not precise or specific or whatever, and it's a lack of faith. No, it's not a lack of faith. It's the prayer in Matthew 5, you know, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done
Yeah.
on earth as it is in heaven. Here we on earth, let thy will be done. So it's not a lack of faith. We have a generation who is just all the teachers is name it and claim it.
Mm,
Just name it and claim it. It's yours. Name the man and claim it. It's yours. Name the
that's
car
it.
and claim it. It's yours. Name the job. That's a lie from the pit of hell.
Mm,
You're going to be so disappointed with God. You're going to be so disappointed with your life at the end of the day. And God has nothing to do with it. But because you were taught using wrong doctrine, and I'm not saying you shouldn't
exactly.
use your faith. Sometimes it's very clear. This is what the Lord says. But how many times have you said, this is what the Lord said? And then 7 months later, you change your mind. Actually, that's not what the Lord said. Most of the time in our lives, that's what happened, you know. So I want to thank you so much. Merci beaucoup, Giselle.
You're welcome.
I want to thank you so much for sharing your story. And I do hope that your story can encourage quite a lot of people. And I'm glad that you have a lot of takeaways from the story.
Mhm.
That's what it is. We made mistakes. We all do make mistakes. Some people may look at your mistakes and say, no, that's a horrible mistake. But let
Yeah.
them tell us about their own mistakes,
We've all made them.
because
Yeah.
we all have that horrible mistake that we made in our life because we are human, because we depended on ourselves, but now we are dependent on Him. When we realize through our mistakes that we need to depend on Him more, that's when He begins to come true for us. Then we begin to shape on our character, our values to make us more like Christ. You are a Congolese woman. You can raise this baby by yourself. You have a good example of family of parents who've been together for over 40 years. So your foundation was great. If you were from a single mother's home or whatever, then I would say maybe you're going to struggle. Then you're going to struggle much more. because
Yeah.
that's just the reality of it. It's not like they're different. I mean, there are people that come from single mothers and they end up becoming great
Exactly.
mothers. So it's not, but with the environment that you allow to uh, shape you, somehow is included in your values and your principles and how you see life. And that is important. So, all the best with that. I mean, stay away from him if you don't want to. But
Yeah.
if but if you get to a place where you need to pursue him to pay maintenance, this is kid, and he needs to pay maintenance. That's just the way that it is. If you get to a place where no, he needs to do that. But if you feel no, I'm not, I'm just gonna I can take care of the baby for now myself and everything, because the baby is gonna grow. The more the baby grows, then the more you're gonna need money to take care of the
Yeah.
baby, obviously,
Yeah. Definitely.
Uh, so, but all the best with that.
Thank
And
you.
thank you so much for sharing your story. And may God bless you. May God go through this transition with you. May He help you every step of the way. May you get the right people around you outside of your family to help you through it. So, thank
Thank
you
you
so
so much.
much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you so much. Bonsoir.
Bonsoir. Bonsoir.
Thank you so much, Giselle. That's Giselle for you right there. Just sharing her story, which is definitely something that we're looking at. Sorry, man. My son just woke up and he was sleeping, and now he's crying. Okay, just hold on. Sleep, okay? Sleep. That you will see now. Okay? Yeah. So, guys, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. For some of you, everybody is in a different place, relationship wise. Some of the lessons we see here, we can relate to it. And maybe we can advise even other people to for them to be able to become better single people, or better in their decision making. That's just very important. So I really want to thank every one of you for staying all this while and being with us. And don't forget, again, some people join later. So I want to thank people who have been supporting me with my legal costs. I really appreciate it. People here in South Africa, overseas, in Canada, in the US, all across the world. Thank you so much. I still need some money to be able to meet my legal costs with Pastor Alf Lukau, who wants me to go, who is telling the court that I need to go to prison. So I have fees to pay. And if I have to, and if the court judgment comes against me, then I would have to pay his cost, that kind of thing. So, and that's going to be extra money. But thank you so much for those who have been sending money towards that. And please, keep sending money, keep supporting this. This is not about me, to be honest with you. It's about the truth. It's about us speaking the truth, just so we make sure that we are not in fear of anyone and we don't favor anyone. We speak truth to power. So if you please go ahead and support rather. PayPal is solomontalks@yahoo.com. PayPal is solomontalks@yahoo.com. I would appreciate your help wherever you are, whatever amount of money you want to send. I would appreciate that. I have a couple of thousands, of dollars to come up with, and this is what I do full time. It's not like I have another job or whatever. My background is missions, just to tell you that, and that's what I've been doing for the last 15 years. Where that's what I do. That's my passion, And if you are local, if you want to support that, this is a net bank account number that you could help and support this as we continue to fight on. And again, pray for me and pray for the will of God. The judgment is going to be next week. And pray for the will of God. Not my will, not your will. Please do not pray for your will, because I don't want you to be disappointed at the end of it. I don't want me to be disappointed. If there's anyone that should be disappointed, is God himself. But he's God. He can never be disappointed, whatever happens, whatever the judgment is. But at the same time, I need to pay the bills, and I need to be able to make sure that I come up with monies to to pay, that kind of thing. So I thank you so much, and I appreciate you, and I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow we are doing the last part of exposing a church in Cape Town at 8 p.m. tomorrow, exposing a certain church that has really a lot of families that have been there, been totally damaged. So we're having a counselor, a trauma counselor, who would come in, and we're having one of the victims also coming in to speak to us tomorrow. So please watch out for that tomorrow at 8. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. There are other videos there that you could actually get and check out. Please check out the video from yesterday that we interviewed the former devil worshipper in Kenya, Erica Kimani. Great video, great truths there. And I would really appreciate if you guys could share this video also. Make sure you share some of the content that you get from here. Thank you so much. God bless you. Bonsoir, like they said in French. Good night. Au revoir. Bye-bye. And have a wonderful, it's night here anyway. It's 10 p.m. here in Johannesburg. And I don't know what time it is where you are. But just have a wonderful day. God bless you.